be taking care of PV every day. Taking care of PV everywhere. We've been taking care of PV. It's all ours. Taking care of PV and investing in our town PV.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to our next episode of PV in Focus. It is great to have everyone tune in on this particular episode. And today, I'm really excited. We have an awesome guest who is who's kind of been dreading this because the fear of being recorded. But we're going to make this fun and low key. And so with me today is Arriana Odom, and you go by Ari.
Yes.
Okay, so Ari is with our Public Works Department, and in particular is overseeing a lot of our stormwater efforts. And so, Ari, welcome. It's great to have you. We're going to make this painless.
Let's hope so.
Okay. So, Ari, how long have you been with the town of Prescott Valley as a staff member?
In September, it'll be 4 years.
4 years, okay. Yeah. And so tell us a little bit about your position. Like, what is stormwater? What are you working on?
So stormwater, we help to try to manage the rainwater as it flows through our town, whether it's through drainage systems or larger culvert systems, residential business areas.
We have our town, was laid out in a way where there's a lot of ditches, right?
Yes.
So what we're talking about are all of the different roadside ditches that exist in certainly in the original part of Prescott Valley.
Yeah.
You'll see it, but in any of the master plan communities, drainage is kind of handled in a different way.
It is completely different.
Okay. All right. Well, that is a very important position for our town. Unfortunately, we've not been getting a lot of rain. Hopefully, after this episode, that triggers the rain, God's to hopefully bring a lot of water down, and we get to deal with it. But we haven't had a lot this year. So, can you talk about just the importance of managing stormwater? So, what are the things from a resident perspective that they probably don't think about as it relates to the town having to deal with stormwater?
Yeah, so stormwater can affect us recreationally. It can affect wildlife. It can affect even just our homes when it's prone to flooding.
So something's not designed the right way,
Correct.
Or it's not, the capacity of the drainage ditch could have downstream implications for homeowners. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then with wildlife, what is in terms of, is it about pollutants or things that could get into the stormwater stream and have downstream effects?
Yeah, so currently we don't have any impaired waters or conveyances here in our town. But with that, it would bring testing. We would have to start doing analytical testing. And that's to assist with the pollutants that come into those streams. It can harm animals. It can harm just the water quality in general, and that effect right there would prompt us to have to do the analytical testing, which we don't want to do.
So certainly, as a reminder for anyone that's listening, we want to be very careful with chemicals that could get into the drainage way, oils, car oils,
pet
waste. All of that stuff could have a huge impact downstream once the water picks it up and carries it down. So we want to be very careful about that. A lot of work is done every year on just maintenance issues. So with our ditches and our culverts, can you talk a little bit about what we do, like what the team does, to really try to address that issue across the whole community?
Yeah, so right now, unfortunately, we're more in a reactive stage because, there's a lot of town to get to. But we go out, once we receive a work order, we try to clean those culverts, get them to the flow. If there is a rain event, we usually get calls during the day, throughout the day, and we just kind of drive around town, go and check on those residents, see if there's an issue with clogging of the culvert. We ran into an instance a few weeks ago where there was actually a basketball stuck in someone's driveway culvert, and it was blocking the water, and that water was almost flooding in other residents across the street. So our guys got out there really quickly, pulled that basketball out, and that water started flowing. So
Right.
those kinds of things are the things that we kind of get into.
So you mentioned that we are kind of in a reactive mode, and I think for anyone that's joined, is listening in with today's episode, is that's not where we want to be, right?
No.
We don't want to be reacting and just waiting for people to call us with problems. We do want to get where we are ahead of the game in terms of maintenance across the entire town.
Yes.
But I think part of our challenge is we just started this division basically. Stormwater management prior to you had just been embedded into our streets crew.
Yeah.
So the streets team, which is a pretty small team, was having to not only deal with all the street maintenance and road projects, but also drainage stuff. And there just weren't enough people to really deal with everything. So we created this new division, and it's funded by our utility ratepayers. There's a small little fee that's on each utility bill. And all of that money is going to help fund all of this maintenance
Yes.
and drainage work and capital projects to build better drainage systems for our community.
Absolutely, yes. They did start trying to do a more proactive approach this year. When we were fully staffed, they took a section of the old part of town and started cleaning those culverts and those front drainage ditches, and getting everything to flow so that we can be prepared for the monsoon season. So we're trying to get there, but we keep getting pulled back for reactive.
We'll
type
get there.
things.
It's just going to take us a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And I think that'll provide a great improvement and service to this community by making sure that we've got good schedules. We are hitting things before the monsoons and some of
Yeah.
the winter storms come into the community. So excellent. I know that, you're always looking for creative solutions to stormwater management. And we just recently, there was an announcement that the town made about an exciting park project. So you partnered with our parks team, and you are trying to mitigate stormwater impacts, and it's at George Anderson Park. So tell us a little bit about what this creative solution was and the partners that we had involved with it.
Yeah, so I was able to join Tracy, who is in the water.
Tracy Lund.
Yes,
Yep.
Tracy
And
Lund.
Tracy Lund, for anyone that's been listening since our beginning, is our water resources
Yes.
advisor, and she was on our first episode, so talking
Yeah.
about the importance of water.
So I was able to attend this conference with Tracy and Parks and Development Services, and after getting together, we kind of formed a little group, and we were trying to look for ways to utilize all of our talents. Within that group, we decided to do a small green infrastructure project. Looking at the parks, Nick had mentioned that George Anderson was dealing with a little bit of an erosion problem, and from that ramada down to that roadside ditch, so we thought that would be a perfect area to utilize that green infrastructure, and it worked out really great. So we all kind of came together and, did our thing.
Awesome. Describe a little bit about, so you've got it was a natural drainage way, and you basically contoured it and then landscaped it to try to either help slow water down to infiltrate back into the in subsoil.
So there was a lot of erosion there. Parks tried to mitigate that using underground drainage systems, and it wasn't working. It just kept eroding out. So we did, like you said, contour that, create a better defined swale into a small depression where we planted native plants, or not native, drought tolerant plants, and it kind of helped to slow that water down. It'll ease the erosion in that area. We won't get much recharge, but it'll help, and it'll help those native plants beautify that park a little bit. And yeah, I think it turned out really great.
Awesome. Well, for anyone that's wanting to see an example of something you might be able to do on your own property, if you've got erosion issues or other things, George Anderson Park, and a good example of the use of limited landscaping, drought tolerant plants, and hopefully something that you can capture more rainwater to benefit your property. So also, I had read in our town post that we had a few weeks ago that there was an external partnership with a Boy Scout troop.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that? How did they get involved in that? And then are there opportunities for other groups to be able to do things with your team?
Yeah, so Brian had a connection with the Boy Scout troop, and he actually reached out to them on my behalf and asked them to come and join us and help us as a volunteer to install this rain garden. And they did an awesome job. And for the future projects of rain gardens or green infrastructures that we plan to install, we will be looking out to residents of our community to help us with that. So
great. Well, any Boy Scout or Girl Scout troop or any other youth group that's looking to be engaged and do a fun project that could really make a huge impact for our community, what is the best way for them to connect with us? Is it contacting Public Works?
yeah, it would be Public Works, reaching out to Stormwater. When we get ready to start our next project, we'll probably put something out on social media or in our mailers to try to get those volunteers.
All right, so Ari's saying check our social media. So we want everyone following social media because that's a great way if we do have an announcement of a project where people could get engaged with that. We've done a lot of work as a town over the past year or so, year and a half, to really reimagine how we deal with water, lots of different water issues. How do we save water? How do we conserve water? How do we get water back into the aquifer? One of the projects you've been involved with is green infrastructure and our low impact development standards. Can you tell us a little bit about what is green infrastructure and our low impact development standards?
The way I see green infrastructure is installing functional solutions to stormwater problems.
Okay.
So whether it's going to help with recharge or with erosion and sediment control, it's something that may have a small impact where you're at, but overall, if enough people do it, it's going to have a larger impact.
Maybe to build on that, it's from my understanding too, it's not doing an engineered, quote unquote, engineered solution with a lot of concrete, and we're treating water or stormwater as a nuisance, but we're trying to use it to, again, water, natural landscaping areas and those types of things.
To integrate it with our...
So using nature, nature as a way to try to solve problems, which is a good thing. Yeah.
Decrease our impervious surface area.
Great.
Really.
Excellent. So we adopted new codes, right? So in our overall town code, there's a section that deals with stormwater management. And so now we've got a whole slew of new tools that not only homeowners that may be building a home, or if there's a development that's taking place or a private business that is coming in, they can use these tools to try to help, again, mitigate downstream, impacts, water impacts, and try to capture as much water as we possibly can to keep here in our community.
Yeah.
Great, excellent. Tied to that is we have you've been working on with a number of other individuals a master drainage plan. And you had mentioned to me before we started the episode, there's kind of two phases. Could you talk about what the two phases are?
Yeah, so the first phase, which is complete, West Consultants gathered all kinds of data for us. They packaged it, and we have now a 2D modeling that we have on GIS that the public can access. They can see the flood area and the depths and all kinds of different information, which can be helpful to a homeowner if they're looking to purchase or to see what is near and around them currently.
Before you do the phase two, so for anyone listening, all of that data is available on the town's website.
Yes.
Where would they go to find that information?
It's in the GIS.
So GIS is Geographical Information System, is part of our IT department.
Yes.
Right?
And then they have different maps there. So ours is a Flow 2D map.
Flow 2D map.
Yes.
And again, it's free, available to our residents. So if someone in a neighborhood area is worried about, what flooding impacts they could have, they could go and look at that data and use it. So then the phase two?
Phase two is more deliverables. They're actually going to get us different projects that we can utilize throughout the town using that data.
Okay.
So we're looking forward to that.
Excellent. And I know one of those projects is the phase 2 identified an area where we're going to be doing a pilot project on stormwater recharge.
Yes.
And it'll be one of the first in the state of Arizona. We're working closely with the Salt River Project, the Nature Conservancy, the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority of the state of Arizona. And so this is an exciting experiment that we're going to be doing of using some technology of how to get stormwater that otherwise would just be, we would try to get out of our community as quickly as
Yes.
possible. How do we retain it and get it down into the aquifer so that we don't lose it to evaporation? So
Yeah.
really exciting project.
And a main proponent of that project coming up is stormwater pollution. We want to make sure that that water is going to get recharged so quickly, it's not going to have time to filter out all those pollutants. So we want to make sure that we keep our water as clean and great quality as possible.
Awesome.
So that goes back to, why we care about stormwater.
Yep, absolutely. Well, that about wraps up our questions today. So you did a great job.
Yay.
Thank you. And I think, again, for anyone that's tuning in on this particular episode, this is a really important part of a service that the town provides for our residents that many times is out of sight, out of mind in terms of people just not thinking about all the things that go into, they see the ditches, but they don't realize that there's monitoring that has to be done. You're involved with any development project in the town to make sure that pollutants aren't leaving a construction site. So you monitor
Correct.
that through SWIP, the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan.
Yes.
And so, all of those things, we really appreciate the work that you and the rest of the team do to make sure that, one, we don't flood our homes and our businesses, that we have clean water, and that we're trying to value water and retain as much water as we can in our particular community.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, I think.
Thank you.
We'll be taking care of people.